Surprising news announcement came up over the weekend, that being that Portugal, the Portuguese Grand Prix, could return to the Formula One calendar as soon as 2027. The Prime Minister of Portugal has signalled the country's intent to return to the F1 calendar, but is this going to be particularly likely? Do I think this is a good move for F1 to do this? I'm going to give my take and give everything you need to know here on the channel as always, guys. So of course the Portuguese Grand Prix only recently left the calendar in 2021. It came as a bit of a surprise to see it back on the calendar in 2020, but this of course being the pandemic times and F1 needing to fill out the calendar as much as possible. So every track that had a grade 1 certification basically got an email saying, can you have a round of the F1 Championship this year? And the Portuguese Grand Prix said sí. Now this was the first ever race in F1 held around the Portimao circuit. Over the years in F1 there had been a Portuguese Grand Prix, most notably at Estoril back in the 1980s and 90s, but it was Portimao, which is a relatively new track, that got the nod to get an F1 Grand Prix, and it had two in total, in 2020 and in 2021, but it didn't return in 2022 as F1 basically went back to the regular calendar at this point, and to the point where of course a lot of places couldn't afford to get a Grand Prix again because it's very expensive to host an F1 race. And indeed this is the real problem, and this is why I am very skeptical about this announcement, because the amount of money that's required to host a Formula One Grand Prix these days is absolutely massive, and we're seeing a lot of European venues struggle. Of course, the French Grand Prix and the German Grand Prix are long gone at this point. We are losing the Dutch Grand Prix after next year. We are losing Imola after this year. We are potentially going to lose Barcelona as well after next year. We've also got Spa, the Belgian Grand Prix, that's going to be on a rotation basis. So the money right now in F1 is absolutely massive, and this is why I'm very skeptical about Portugal getting on the calendar, because F1 has made a lot of noises about wanting to go to the likes of Thailand, Rwanda, South Africa, go to these relatively far-flung places, and in most of these cases countries that have never hosted a Grand Prix before. Of course, Portugal has hosted a Formula One Grand Prix in the past, it has done on many occasions, but what will Portimao have to do to be able to get on the F1 calendar? Well, put simply, they just need to pay enough. Formula One doesn't really care who you are or what the morals are in your country. If you pay enough, you get on the calendar. Portugal, of course, is a relatively chill country when it comes to a lot of these rights and stuff like that. It is nowhere near as controversial as some of the other inclusions on the calendar. You know which ones I'm already talking about, of course, there, guys. But do I think it is particularly likely that Portimao will come back? Well, it is still a grade 1 circuit. It clearly does produce some decent races. Both the 2020 and 2021 races were pretty good in my opinion. You know, it's definitely better than a lot of other tracks on the calendar. Again, you know which ones I'm probably talking about there. But to actually host the Grand Prix every single year, I'll be shocked if Portugal can afford that. I really, really will be. In terms of the track itself, the layout and everything's fine, but I think what they'll probably have to do is upgrade the pit buildings. I don't think that's ever been upgraded since the circuit was first built, so I think that is the next step, really. They're going to have to upgrade that, like we've seen with the likes of Monza, and of course the Hungaroring as well. They've really upgraded their paddock facilities. Belgium has done quite a similar thing as well. I think even Silverstone, not too long ago, you know, they're all upgrading their facilities to try and keep on the cutting edge of Formula One, and Portimao I think would have to do something similar. But it'd be great to see a full crowd there. Obviously we had no people there in 2021, and in 2020 there was a very limited crowd there for the race. So to see the venue actually packed out and everything would be fantastic, and it would be, you know, fans from all over Europe would of course go to there as well. So I could see it coming back onto the F1 calendar, but I think it's much more likely it would happen as a race rotation deal. You know, that 2027 date might be the first in a rotation deal, maybe with Spain, maybe with Italy, something like that, you know, Imola or Barcelona, I should say, more specifically when it comes to those. I could see them rotating with that personally, but I am very, very skeptical about this. It'd be a great race to get back, but we know what F1 is like. They race for the money and nothing else. That's all they care about. But guys, am I being too cynical about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Will Portugal return to the F1 calendar? Should it return to the calendar? Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and have a fantastic day wherever in the world today, and we'll see you very soon.